Hello, and welcome to another episode of InterSoul Leadership, where we talk about how we can support one another as leaders, how we can make sure that we're showing up as our best authentic selves with a real voice, a voice that will really make impact and influence, making sure that our appearance is really helping to stimulate the environment and making sure that we leave people feeling in a much better way than they met us. So today I have the opportunity to introduce you to my niece, Jade Chandler, who is a performing artist. She also helps artists from a standpoint of helping them to bring structure and organization to their projects. She's a model, she's an actress, she is a poet, she's an author, and much of her work talks about bringing forth and bringing awareness to our biases based on different trauma and different situations we've gone through. And I think sometimes as leaders we try to squash and push that down and we don't face it, and it's not until we face it that we come to our assignments in a more healthy perspective. Welcome, Jade. Thank you for joining me. And I know you're on the run. I appreciate you joining me as you're moving from one engagement to the other, just to talk about this topic around how do you still create transformation even though you've been through trauma, even though you've had to deal with your own biases. How do we still cause transformation in the lives of people around us? So maybe you want to start by telling us a little bit about your work and why you go so deep in this kind of topic and related topics to your work.
Yeah, so hello everybody. My name is Jade again. And so, yes, what I do is whether it is I'm working on a film, a poem, a play, anything of that nature, my mission is always not only to incite joy, peace, and healing, but to also bring new perspectives and challenge biases. And the reasons that that is important to me is because not enough times do we see enough inclusive narratives in the space, in media. And so the downfall of that is people will begin to have one track mind of who these people are, or the way that these people are displayed will be the only narrative that we know about them, and it's not inclusive to who they are, the intersectionality of people. And we begin to interact, we begin to make choices and decisions about people based on these biases and perspectives that we have that we might not even realize we have. So being able to bring those narratives to the forefront in my art is important to me to create more of an exclusive environment, as well as to have authentic interactions with different communities.
Yeah, and I think that's so important because I think sometimes we think we're being inclusive, but yet we really aren't
Yeah,
being completely inclusive.
yeah.
And inclusive, let me ask you this, inclusive doesn't mean that I talk like somebody else or I'm become sometimes I think from include when we talk about inclusive we become too familiar with people and we don't maintain our professionalism and we
Mm-hmm.
don't maintain our respect for the other person. We
Mm-hmm.
just go deep in, right? So do you have any thoughts around how do we really create healthy inclusion?
Yeah, I think it's by allowing people to use their voice in the space as well. Like, I think it's simple as that. Instead of assuming for people, instead of setting up systems that you think people will thrive in the best, I think it's allowing people to tell you what they need, allowing people to tell you what's best for them, how they operate, and then being an active listener and being able to then apply that to how you engage with them. Like, I think that's just the most important thing. And instead of trying to assume. So when we have these diversity and inclusion conversations, instead of just having it and talking at people, but making these active conversations for the people who need it most to be heard and to tell you what it is they need, is the best way I think that we're going to get through this barrier.
Yeah, that's good. So when we're dealing with trying to figure out what our biases are, that
Mm-hmm.
can be painful because one, sometimes we don't know what they are. And then when somebody makes us aware of it, it's like, what? That's not me. That's
Yeah.
not me.
Yeah.
So, how have you personally addressed some of your biases? And I can share mine as well, and how I've been able to also help other people overcome their biases of people who look and sound like me,
Yeah.
when they're open to doing that. So, what are some of the suggestions that you can help with people, help others to understand how to approach addressing biases?
Yeah. So I think what's been the most important thing for me in that space is putting myself in those conversations. So whether it is podcasts, whether it is articles that I read, thought leaders that are activists on these different spaces, it is following them and engaging in those types of conversations. Like you have to kind of get yourself uncomfortable and challenge yourself in these different sectors so that you can check yourself. And a lot of times it's things that we don't think we need. I don't need to read up on that. I don't need to listen to that, because you actually will be mind blown of sometimes the things that you actually hold within yourself. And I think a lot of times, not only can we just listen to it, that's one thing, but to actively allow yourself and humble yourself to be like, I could also be contributing to this problem, whether it is I'm listening to a podcast on how they're going to allow people of color to be, included in this space. I'm still going to listen, because although I am also a person of color, I can still have my biases against other people of color. So I want to make sure that on all ends, I'm allowing myself to be humble enough to engage in those conversations and seek out those conversations.
I can totally relate to that. In my working career, I was working with people from India,
Mm-hmm.
and they really became my friends, and we
Mm-hmm.
had a open relationship in that I allowed them to ask me questions about Americans and, about what they saw based on their TV or what they
Yeah.
heard in their country versus what actually happens here, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
especially for people of color, because
Mm-hmm.
we are not necessarily portrayed in the most positive light
Mm-hmm.
across media all the time. But because I was willing to allow them to ask the questions, and then shed light on, I'm not speaking for the whole place, but I can tell you for the majority and those that I know, and because I've lived as long as I have, I've known a lot of people of color. This
Yeah.
is this is who we really represent. We do care about our children. We do care about our families. We do care to make sure that we're leaving wealth and prosperity for our families. We are educated people. All those things that people don't think we care about, or we all get broad brushed with a stroke of a pen or a paintbrush based
Mm-hmm.
on another group of people and how they act. And it's like, oh, all Americans act like that. No, not really. We
Yeah.
don't. And
Yeah.
so I created that environment where we could all talk about it openly. I wasn't offended by their questions. And then you could see how they just was like, wow, you guys are more like us than we think you are,
Mm-hmm.
or that we
Yeah.
see. And I know you've traveled abroad
Yeah.
to other countries. Can you talk about what those experiences were like, and
Yeah.
really either reshaping how you thought about people or helping others to rethink how they think about people of color?
Yeah. So, for one, to talk about something that you already said is people allowing people to ask you questions so that they can learn more. And I definitely agree with that. And I encourage that. And I'm a very open person if people want to know. But I also think it's important for people to recognize it's not our responsibility to teach them as well. And they have to be active. If you really want to, especially if you have a business or something, you're a leader over people. If you want to be inclusive, you have to actively seek to understand who you've employed, who you work with. At the same time, though, I have an open heart and spirit to help teach people anyway. But yes, I have. I went to Italy, and I'm going to tell you, I was a very big culture shock for me in many ways that can show that, like, oh, the American education sometimes, what are you guys learning if you didn't know these type of things? And I felt a little, lower in the
Mhm.
education of totem pole. But yeah, I was just surprised. So first of all, um, I just didn't even know the I thought it could be as diverse as America was. I didn't realize it wasn't. So I was surprised about that. And, the different Black people that you see in Italy, like if they're there, they're usually immigrants trying to get back home, or, not all, but, that those are some of the ones that I've met. And I was surprised, like, oh, well, didn't know. What are you doing here then? So what's going on? So it was very interesting. And just to learn about them, yeah, hearing their perspectives on us, like, oh, it's the American dream. Everybody walks around with, like, they said, like a dog in your purse. And it's like, what's up, dude? Like, totally rap. Like, oh God, we don't talk like that at all. Well, I don't. I don't talk like that at all. So it was interesting to hear their biases. And yeah, they're like, Americans, you guys are like dumb, or you guys are only care about yourself and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh gosh, what a look we have. And, and it's like, but meeting me, I'm still connected with some of those people, because it's like, that's not who we are at all, and they were able to take to that. I was able to learn from who they are. A lot of Americans, we have these big dreams, we want millions and stuff like that. The people that I've met, they were people around my age at the time, so younger 20s. They didn't really have these huge aspirations, like to be this big, rich, famous people. They just wanted to go to school, to get their nice paying job and have their family, because their culture is different. They
Right.
don't work during lunch and stuff like that. So, it's a very community based environment. So to meet them and to engage with them, yeah, it definitely was a culture shock. And I just think it's a beautiful thing to delve in different cultures like that, to challenge your mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I know you have a book out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you have a copy. You want to just
I
show
do.
the cover?
Well,
Awesome.
my
Tell us the
name.
title, because it's a little, This Is My
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Yeah. So this book I wrote, I guess it's like, what is it, 3 years ago now? It was it was a book about my journey of a certain time of life that had a lot of ebbs and flows, but it also followed a little bit. If you look really, really deep into the order of the poems and what I'm saying in the poems, it kind of follows the story of Adam and Eve, to the fall, to, Christ coming, and everything like that. Just follows that storyline of what I went through, and, you know, my my journey from what I was going through to really just involving Jesus in my life, and the after of that. And it's not all, beauty and rainbows at the end of the story, but it just shows that involvement through the different, and the emotions through the different poems and things like that that I have. And again, it has my mission of trying to incite joy, peace, and healing, and things like that, by being able to relate to people. I think poetry is a beautiful way to, be able to express your emotions. It's a very great mental health resource. And so that's definitely what I wanted to use this to do.
Awesome. And where can people find the book?
Yeah, this is on Amazon under This Is My Hallelujah, and then you got to type in my name, and then as well as it's on Barnes and Nobles, you can find it on there as well. So yeah.
Great.
Hmm.
So we've talked about biases. We've talked about the fact that a lot of our biases, and maybe we haven't talked to that extent, but a lot of our biases come from trauma that we've gone through,
Hmm.
right? This certain person didn't treat us well, or
Hmm.
we had to go without. And so therefore we build up this narrative in our head around that's the way we start to color life from that perspective.
Yes.
And it's really important that leaders recognize that that does not define the world for me, or not to let it define the world for me, to get back to what you try to get everybody back to, a really healthy, joyful, positive place in life. Recognizing that we do have those ebbs and flows, but there is peace that we should be looking towards, and things like that. So we've talked about making sure we have self-awareness, we embrace diversity and inclusion, we get that feedback and have accountability. So can
Hmm.
we start talking a little bit more about that? Like, when can you think of a time when you've got some feedback, and how did you get accountability to the point that you could move beyond, oh, this is a hurtful place, to now this is a positive place for me, and now I can help other people. Because especially as a performing artist, you know what it's like to be a performing artist. You know the challenges of keeping on schedule and to finish and be a finisher. And so, and that's why you're pouring into others. But can you talk about the need and how you get that feedback, take the accountability, and really make it work for yourself?
Yeah. So um, I think it takes a lot of self awareness of what what was said to you, right? And being able to compartmentalize, or um, being able to not carry it with you through everything. Now, I think sometimes those feedback that we can get, whether it's criticism, whether it's good, um, it's always a learning experience, and it can always help us in our practice or our business or anything like that. The issue that I see with different leaders, or it could be artists or anything like that, is when you take that and it becomes a painful part for you, and then you identify with it, and so now you're leading from a place of that. And the problem with identifying with that is you do want your sympathy, you do want to find your community and things of that, but it's still not who you are. You're not this broken person, you're not this person of whatever was said to you, that's now what it's making you feel like. And that's the problem that I see a lot. So that's why your community and your accountability is important, but a lot of times we don't always find good community and accountability. So that's why resources that you can get your hands on, being able to write it out like I do through poetry or whatever, so that you can really understand what's going on in your mind, so you can lead from a pure place. I think it is important. That's at least been important for me, to not identify with it, so that I understand that I'm hurt here, but I need to be able to hear you from where you are here. And being also to be communicate that. You can communicate your hurts. You can communicate what you've been through. And just to give a short story, like I won't be too unconfidential, but one of the jobs I work with is a bunch of different professionals, and they're training to help other people, and to lead them, to help them with their mental health and different things of that nature. And a lot of these people, they're introducing themselves while we're in the training, and they're just talking about which is not a bad thing. They're talking about how they lead from a place of, oh, I went through this, and that drives my mission now. That's a great thing. But a lot of them have such biases against the different communities and practices that hurt them. So whether it is religious, whether it is parents, whether it is a certain group of people that they now identify with another group of people, it's like your practice is now in opposition and trying to dismantle this other thing that hurt you, when it wasn't this entire organization or group of people as much as it was that person. And so now they're leading and training and trying to in, influence other people from this place of hurt, than it is you're not really in a place of healing to be able to do that. So it's like wounds, just digging down open wounds of other people, than it is being able to like help them close it up. So
Yeah, that's so good. And that's really why I created Destiny Speak,
mhm,
to help leaders be able to have that safe place where we can work together through what's the voice that you really want to leave a legacy with, and
mhm,
how can you show up in those spaces where you are a leader, or if you're creating something, a business or a ministry or community being a community advocate in some sort. That's what Destiny Speak is all about, for you to be able to find that safe space. And I help you work through getting to there with tangible goals, tangible outputs, tangible outcomes. And then that's also where I think the benefit of both of us being in InterSoul Leadership community, where people can share in that community, as well, leaders coming together to be that different voice, to have that different appearance,
mhm,
and to leave people feeling in a much more positive way, because we're getting to that more positive insight of ourselves. So that's great around this feedback and accountability. And for those who are listening, if you want to connect with me, you can do that. I'm happy to take people on as new coaching clients, or be a speaker in your organization. That it's really about helping the people to get to that space where they can be heard so
Mhm.
they can release their voice in a far
Yeah.
greater way. And then we talk about continuous learning, and it's not just you talk about podcasts, you talk about reading books, you talk about reading articles. Is there anyone that you follow that you really follow closely, that you really like the work that they're doing?
Yeah. So for me, a big part of who I am and my work always stems from my relationship with Christ. So for me, being able to engage with different sermons, like I love Tim Keller, I love Jackie Hill Perry, Matt Chandler is great. I just found a new one. It's like I forget the pastor's name. I think it's like Pastor Eric or something like that. And he's out of Philadelphia with Epiphany Church. So just listening to different sermons, Megan Ashley with In Totality, that's a podcast. Um, I think it speaks to me to my core because that's how I identify. And so being able to heal myself and motivate myself and not only motivate myself, but through engagement with the Holy Spirit and being able to really tune in and keep myself disciplined with learning in that spiritual aspect, it is just something that trickles down in the any other aspect of my life. So obviously not all spiritual, being able for me, I listen to the acting podcast by B BRG Studios, I believe in Los Angeles, and that has great because that's my realm and my field. So listening to everything they have to say, and I took a coaching call by them, and even engaging with you and Destiny Speaks, InterSoul. Like, I just think being able to have that accountability is invaluable. And especially with your expertise from being in corporate America, from being an artist yourself, from being in ministry and different things like that, that obviously speaks to so many different parts of me. So having all those intersectionalities all can come together and being led with that type of expertise is just helpful. So that's
Awesome.
my thing.
Thank you so much. So, I want to leave our listeners with five things that we've really talked about and integrated throughout our conversation that you can do to be more aware of your biases, the traumas that you've taken, you've encountered and experienced, and being aware of those so that you can know how to heal from them and then really transform the lives and the organizations that you're in. And they are cultivate self-awareness,
Mhm.
embrace diversity and inclusion, seek feedback and accountability, continuous learning, and have practice empathy and compassion. So
Mhm.
thank you, Jade, for joining us. Where can people find you and see your work? Because I absolutely think people need to experience your work, your acting, your modeling. So tell people where they can, and we'll put it in the show notes too, but tell people where they can find you and watch what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram at Jade D Chandler. That's most of my handles for my middle name. It's not Jaded, it's Jade D Chandler, as well as YouTube. It's under Jade's Homes videos that I have that. I also have my website that's jadeDchandler.com as well. Paying for the domain. So /wixsite.com. You'll be able to get to see all of that. A lot of my portfolios on there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And safe travel to your next appointed place. Thank you again for jumping in from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And for all of you, again, if you want to reach out to Jade, we'll have her contact information on the screen. If you're looking for that support as a leader or for your team, certainly feel free to reach out to me as Destiny Speak. I do run workshops. I'm a speaker, and I do individual coaching. So until next time, go be great. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Thank you.